and welcome to another episode of Simon Says, Let's Talk Business on Business RadioX. This is your host, Al Simon, with Sandler Training by Simon Inc. And we are a sales performance organization, but this radio show is all about our guests. We spotlight great local businesses on this show and their best practices. And our listeners, you need to listen carefully because you really might want to contact these folks, not only for their business practices, but also to do business with them, because these people are ninjas in the business world. And we've got a wide array. We got 3 guests today, a wide array of kinds of companies, and we're so excited. We've got David Aferiat, who is the founder of Avid Vines, champagne company. So we'll start by drinking. All right, and then we've got Mac Cregger with Angel Oak Home Loans. So after we drink champagne, we'll go buy a house.
That's right.
Is that okay? And then we've got Glade Johnson with Advantage Protective Services. So if anybody gets mad at us because we're drinking too much champagne, we'll bring in Glade's crew to clean up the mess. Did I get all that right?
You got it right.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so. Excellent. So again, we're going to spotlight your businesses. We're going to talk about your best practices. We're going to have a lot of fun doing this. At the end of our 3 guests sharing with us, I'm going to share a sales tip with our audience as well, and that'll be today's show. All right, we ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, so let's start with David. David Aferiat. He is the founder of Avid Vines, LLC.
That's right.
You're in the champagne business.
It's a good business to be in.
I imagine.
I mean, it brings a smile to everyone's face when we talk about it, but it's a passion, and it's also now something that I can point to, and that's growing. And so it's a wonderful thing. It's a real miracle that the champagnes can get here the way they do. But I started this company with the mission of bringing not just any champagne, but really special artisanal owner, grower, and premier cru high-quality champagnes to the country under climate-controlled conditions. One of the things that I based the company on was the fact that 95% of all the wine from Europe to the U.S. arrive in unrefrigerated containers when they cross the Atlantic. And what that means is that there are extreme temperature fluctuations that can happen. And that's why lots of wines from Europe are fortified for that bottle shock of going through temperature extremes that can be 30 degrees to the upside and 30 degrees to the downside, with sulfites, with extra ingredients that don't relate to a very good experience, sometimes the day after, sometimes hours after. And we started the company because I started feeling the effects of drinking. I love Bordeaux and California Reds as much as anyone else, but I started to have to prepare for an evening drinking those wines, either with some aspirin or lots of water.
Right. When
I drink these champagnes, there's no regrets the next day. And that's often one of the ways we kind of couch the benefits of the champagne.
Yeah, you said it's really kind of all about the next day, right? Well, the taste too, though, right?
You enjoy these twice. You enjoy them once when you taste them, and secondly, the next day when you wake up with no regrets.
Nice. So how'd you get into this business?
So I am French. I'm a French national, but born and raised in the U.S. Through my father, I'm French, and my children have subsequently passports to the 2 countries, and it's half my family lives in Nice, the area.
Yes.
So I've been to the country many times, and I've tried to instill the same culture with my children, with my 2 girls. But we were as a family in France last June, very grateful to be there, visiting family, but then deciding for my parents' 49th wedding anniversary.
All right.
Which is, again, a very special occasion. We were in the Champagne region, and rather than, in addition to going to the traditional large houses that everyone that you know, the Veuve Clicquot, the Dom Perignons, I decided to do some research and find what was a kind of growing evolution in the Champagne region of these owner growers who weren't selling to the larger champagne houses, but holding back and creating their own labels. And they don't have the same production. They don't have the same huge homes, the galleries for you to kind of see how everything is made. They have their own smaller, more modest production facilities. And I expected to taste 100 of these kinds of little producers before finding something that I might like to do, maybe in retirement. Through the research with my family, we found this gentleman whom I'm importing now on the second try. And so my parents have a great palate. They're the ones who kind of instilled with me this, an appreciation of vocabulary. And when we tasted it, I looked at them and like, is this as good as we think it is? They nodded in improvement. This is pretty fabulous. And
nice.
The gentleman who makes the wine, his name is Julien Tessier, And he's a fourth-generation winemaker. And when I asked him, "Have you ever exported to the U.S.?" he said, "No, I haven't yet." And I was like, "Well, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do it." And so we've been able to establish a wonderful relationship. He's the fourth generation, as I said. When we were at the vineyard, his son was in a big wheel running around the vineyard, and you could see just the fifth generation one day coming along and taking over the process. But he's in his early 40s, I believe. He has a firm command of the harvest, and which this year occurred on September 9th, and under beautiful conditions. But good, bad, or whatever, he's gone through several harvests now and has made his imprint on the champagnes, and they're exceptional to taste.
Well, how did the idea of climate control come into play for you?
Well, so when I started, going to the business side for a little bit, I once I realized, my gosh, I want to do this, I had to create a business plan, and in doing so, I have a friend of mine who recommended a professor at the Georgia State University, and who was for his executive MBA class collecting business plans. And this is this was June when I was there. In September, October, I was like, well, I've got a business plan, and I'd love to hand it over to the students. And he was very appreciative. I was extremely grateful. And one of the more interesting things that the students went through, in addition to firming up like financial pro formas, was some interesting research on a marketing basis, which was, where in the country are people over-indexing in terms of search on Google, on Facebook, for the terms organic wine and organic champagne. And there were 5 states that came out of that research that over-indexed, that is, that more people are looking than elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense.
And 2 of them, clearly you'll know. One's New York, one's California. A third state was Oregon. And then the other 2 rounding the top 5 were Tennessee and North Carolina.
No kidding.
And I was like, that's very unusual.
Yes.
Texas and Georgia wound up, maybe 7th or 8th on that list. And I knew I wanted to import into Atlanta because I live here, and I have strong family ties also in Texas, where my parents currently live now. But Tennessee and North Carolina were quite a surprise. But it led me to believe that this, while I wanted to bring in wines that used organic methods, I reaffirmed the fact that I want to bring these into the U.S., into the Southeast first, and into Georgia first, because Georgia has a growing culinary reputation for excellence, a growing number of James Beard award-winning chefs that are here in the city and are in the region doing excellent work.
I've heard that, yeah.
Bringing a focus on natural ingredients, the ingredients that are farmed locally. And this is the same philosophy in terms of champagne, of bringing locally sourced, beautifully harvested champagnes from premier cru, from government-designated areas of this is the best place to grow these grapes, and keeping it close, rather than selling off selling off the harvest to someone else to combine it with other regions of Champagne. This comes from a very specific location, and that connection to the land is shared here in the South by the way of food and an appreciation for wines of that nature. And it all led me to believe that this is a great place to be bringing it first, rather than to California or to New York. And I think Georgia and the Southeast deserve to have champagne here first that isn't anywhere else. And so
we're going to end the show early. We're all going to start imbibing the bottles you brought, right?
Well, let's do it. I wish I could share that experience.
It's radio. We can't share it with the other people.
We can share the sound. There's nothing that will stop a conversation anywhere at a party or your Thanksgiving table than the sound of a champagne, bottle going off. And
that is true.
And everyone says, "What?" Everyone just does that pause that speaks volumes.
So are you saying that most champagne is not imported in a climate-controlled environment?
5% is. And
5%
so
is.
It's very important for these champagnes that are, if you're going to appreciate at the margin the organic nature of these wines and what goes into them, or rather, frankly, what's kept out of them. And let's review. These organic methods include no pesticides, no chemicals that are used in the process, no heavy machinery in the vineyards during harvest. All of it is hand-picked. And all of it is done in a way that keeps the wine and impurities out of the process. To go through all that work and to go through all of that special attention in making the wines, the last thing you'd want to do is shock them into temperature extremes that can happen on the waters when it takes a week, 10 days to get here. And these wines leave from the port of Le Havre in France, and they make their way to New York, and then they arrive in Savannah. But they come into Savannah, and then and then come to the warehouse that's here in Atlanta, and then get distributed to the rest of the country, to Texas and so forth.
Okay.
So by protecting this and keeping them under refrigerated containers, you and I are, when we taste these champagnes, are literally at the vineyard door, because the product is as stable when it left as when we receive it, and that's huge.
And that's only 1 in 20. I mean, 5%.
That's right.
Wow.
On top of that, then this is Premier Cru, which is even, there's Grand Cru, which is exceptionally designated. There's Premier Cru, and then there's the rest of Champagne, which is quite large, the region, but where the rest of the Champagne can be labeled as Champagne. And so, as we all know, another lesson is that everything that isn't made in that region is called sparkling wine, or a Champagne method, but not labeled as such, as Champagne.
Okay. I did not know that, actually.
Right. So anybody, and it's taken many years of negotiations, but if it's called Champagne, it's from Champagne. If it's called Champagne and it's elsewhere, it's not supposed to be called Champagne. It's supposed to be called sparkling wine.
Okay.
And most people now, most producers in other parts of the world respect that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what's your favorite in the portfolio?
Oh, so there are 5 that I import now, and one's very price comparable to the Veuve Clicquot that you might see, but again, it is Premier Cru. It is made with sustainable and organic methods, but it's about the same price point that you would find Veuve Clicquot, maybe 5 or 10 more. And then there's the other 4 are a series of blends. There's a beautiful rosé that we're actually looking at. That it's in a clear bottle, but the color is so red and so gorgeous.
It is.
Most rosés you might see on the shelf are a kind of orange color, a little pale. Sometimes they are actually hidden behind a green bottle, and therefore, what's it going to be until I pour it into a glass? But this is shockingly red. It's 100% Pinot Noir. And then there's a vintage champagne that's millésime, that's vintage 2012, which is super special. It has one-of-a-kind kind of uniqueness to it, and once it's gone for that year. But the rest are blends, which are often half of 1 year and a blend of aged reserves that Julien keeps on hand in order to maintain a kind of consistency. And there's a lot of notes in them, a lot of that are, well, they're beautiful. And here in Atlanta, I should say that there's a growing number of retail locations and restaurants that are bringing these champagnes to their menus, and that you can find. The champagne is called André Tessier. That's the great-grandfather who started the vineyard, or the company, now led by Julien Tessier. And Tessier's, I'm saying the French word, I don't really know how to say it otherwise, but it's T-I-X-I-E-R.
T-I-X-I-E-R.
And the champagnes are now in Canoe, the restaurant Canoe,
and
as well as H&F Bottle Shop.
Okay.
Just to name drop a few.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you sell to restaurants and you sell also individually?
Well, I sell through a distributor.
Okay.
And in a 3-tier state, there's the importer or winery, there's the distributor, and then there's the retail or restaurant location. And so
our listeners, what's the best place they can find?
They can find the champagnes as distributed. We're hand-to-hand in partnership with Savannah Distributing, an excellent company and a great team who help bring the wines to these locations. But as I said, you can now find them at H&F Bottle Shop, Cork and Caps, I believe, in Roswell.
Okay.
And as I said, Canoe and some other restaurants that are coming online.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. But this isn't what you do full time, right? You got other things that you do?
Yeah, I like to tell people that, I don't play golf. I do this instead of playing golf.
Yeah.
The main focus is actually a wonderful company that we've created and sustained for 17 years now that's called Trade Ideas, in a vastly different industry. It's the mission of Trade Ideas is software that helps people trade on the stock market.
Oh, right.
And we use machine learning, artificial intelligence to design algorithms that are maintained and selected. And the ideas that come through that help our clients identify an opportunity, spot a price target for that opportunity, and a stop loss in case the idea fails.
Right.
And with that kind of guardrails around the decision, there's a lot less anxiety. And especially in a world of zero commissions that we live in now, it's easier to make a trade, but it's also easier to lose money. And so tools like ours become even more important, like Trade Ideas, because you want to make an informed decision that's backed by an enormous amount of processing, big data processing that the artificial intelligence is able to do and then lay out as a recommendation.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. You got 2 things going on that are really fun, huh?
It's busy.
Yeah.
That's why I can't do it alone. I rely on such an amazing team on both ends for Avid Vines and for Trade Ideas. But everyone needs a team of mentors. Everyone needs a team of people that are willing to add their talents to your passion to the ultimate goal. And the goal for these companies are vastly different, but in the end, it all means bringing making people better off from where they started.
There you go. I think that may be the most helpful thing you've said so far for me personally. So many of us, when we're entrepreneurs, small business owners, we tend to go it alone and do our own thing, but we need ideas from others. We need good people around us.
You'd be amazed at how many people will work for champagne. It's like, I don't have any money at the moment, but revenue-wise, but growing this, have some champagne. I've had a team who helped me with the logo for Avid Vines, which is avidvines.com, and and helped with the social media messaging. It's a huge lift, but wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Yeah, well, this is Al Simon with Sandler Training, and my show is Simon Says Let's Talk Business on Business Radio X. And we've been talking to David Aferiat, the founder of Avid Vines. And David, you mentioned quickly how to get a hold of you, but what's the best way for listeners to get a hold of you?
The best way is to kind of follow along on Instagram, where you can find us at Avid_Vines. But we always will announce where we appear through the Instagram, and you can also follow us on Facebook at Avid Vines, where you can learn about these organic methods and some of the trials and tribulations of what it takes to bring these champagnes to the U.S. Just
Excellent.
A quick aside: I had on the first pallet that came over, I lost about 6 or 7 cases because of a speedy pallet driver at one of the warehouses in France before it left for the U.S. who just hit the brakes and cases went flying off the top of the pallet, and they took pictures and we had to go through insurance. But I'm like, we call that the angel's share when it just doesn't reach anyone's lips but winds up on the floor like that.
And the angel's share.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
Keep that to a minimum.
Great way to start. That's your first shipment. Awesome. Way to go. Well, David, it's been good having you with us. And
thank you.
And so our listeners, if you want to get a hold of David, Instagram, Avid_Vines would be a great way to do that. Super. Okay. Mac Cregger, Senior Vice President and Regional Manager at Angel Oak Home Loans. So we go from champagne to home loans. This show has variety, huh? What do you think?
Al, I appreciate you having me on, but I'd like to go back to David and talk more about alcohol and stock trading.
We could do that. Yeah, we could actually spend more time on that.
In all seriousness, I appreciate you having me on and highlighting Angel Oak Home Loans. Is a great honor to be here.
Well, excellent. I'm glad you are here. And so home loans, home loans, probably not a household name for people because how many times do people get a mortgage, right? So tell us about Angel Home Loans and how Angel Oak Home Loans and why in particular, your business model is good for homeowners.
I have an honor of being able to lead in my home state, in a state that I was born in a company that was started in Atlanta.
It was?
It was, and
okay.
It's the only fully integrated mortgage company in all the Southeast United States, meaning we securitize our own funds. We have over $11 billion in securitized funds that we're able to create our own portfolio suite of products. So what makes us unique is not only do we offer traditional mortgage products, but we offer a suite of portfolio products that helps a non-traditional buyer, someone who has events that may have taken them out of normal guidelines, a little bit outside the lines.
Yeah.
And,
can you give us an example of that?
Absolutely. We have, for like a self-employed buyer, it's been hard for years for self-employed buyers to be able to purchase a home. And a lot of times someone who's self-employed chooses to lighten their tax burden. So we've created products that don't require things such as tax returns or pay stubs. So we have a wide variety of portfolio products that help a non-traditional buyer.
That's pretty exciting, actually, thinking about that. I mean, so you must really have a following, or like that particular niche must really help you in terms of finding people that you can help.
I think it's been one of the greatest areas of growth within our industry, and the fact that we are the front runner nationally for like a bank statement loan.
Yeah.
Someone who has financially succeeded to a point where they want to purchase a home for their family, but they may not be able to provide traditional things like tax returns or pay stubs. but they can provide bank statements, and that allows them to be qualified and be able to become a proud homeowner.
That's awesome. How long have you been doing this?
This is year number 16 for me.
Is it?
I came from a completely different industry, and as a leader in another industry, someone came to me and told me that we needed a leader in the mortgage industry that cared about people, and so I was excited to join years ago.
Were you? Mm-hmm. So, David, you wanted to make a comment?
From an entrepreneur's point of view, I mean, I would imagine that those who find it difficult to find funding are run the gamut. Those who are who are challenged financially, but then also those who are starting a business, but perhaps in past have gone through bankruptcy from starting a business, or from who are pouring a lot of their resources into their business. Does it run the gamut as to what percentage are
you asking if we can trade champagne for a loan? Is that the question?
We have a barter in progress.
No,
it's happening right now.
Yes.
David, that's actually a great question, because I feel like our portfolio suite of products primarily helps two groups of people. One, business owners who choose to lighten their tax burden and be able to provide bank statements instead of traditional tax returns and pay stubs. But then also, I think you mentioned, we went through, maybe y'all remember, a little bit of a hiccup about 10 years ago in our industry. And
a little bit, yeah.
All across the real estate industry that affected the entire country. And so I don't know anyone, including myself, that didn't have some bumps in the road getting through that process that we all went through. And anyone who has a bump or a challenge, it's very important they know they can still get a home loan. And that's what these portfolio products are designed to do, is for some people to be a Band-Aid, an opportunity for financing for a couple of years till they get back on their feet, or they get over that challenging situation in their life and they reestablish themselves. So I take a lot of pride in being able to help many thousands of family members throughout our communities that need financing, that maybe had a bump in the road, or maybe have a non-traditional situation, be able to afford and move into a home and get set up again financially.
That is amazing, actually. Now, as David said, lots of different kinds of non-traditional buyers probably, and you said yourself 10 years ago there was this big hiccup in the industry, but today it's pretty much boom times, right? What's different about today, and how's the growth been at Angel Oak in the last couple of years?
As of yesterday, we hit $1 billion in closed loans for 2019, and we have never hit $1 billion in 1 year as a company.
Woohoo!
So it's time to open the champagne and celebrate.
We just popped one.
There we go. Yes.
We keep going back to that champagne, but $1 billion, so a huge accomplishment for us.
That's excellent.
I like to see us as a small company, the way that our culture is designed. But I also see the huge sales numbers coming in, so I know that we are helping a significant number of people throughout the Southeast and in the entire United States. Our growth has been built on people.
Okay.
Great companies are built by great people.
Yes, they are.
And we were very fortunate that the owners of the company invested into me and invested into other leaders and allow us to build our company operations first. Any great sales organization is first built operationally. That's the backbone of every company, is the operation folks. This is your shout out. You're out there working hard and supporting our sales folks and allow them to go meet with clients and help people face to face. Our company was built around great people. And a philosophy I've always lived by is who you are matters more than what you do.
Yes.
Both are important. What you do does matter, but who you are should always define what you do. And at Angel Oak Home Loans, the who is the most important thing. We're surrounded with great leadership and great managers and great salespeople, operations. That's allowed us to succeed and grow. In the last 2 years, we've doubled in size.
Have you really?
And we've been able to do that in a very comfortable manner to where we have organically grown city by city, hiring one person at a time. That kind of organic growth is the best way for a mortgage company to grow and never lose touch with the customer that's applying for a loan.
This is
really
serious
proud of that.
stuff. Could be. You should be. I mean, well, first of all, doubling in that short a period of time usually means operational chaos. All right, in businesses, they'll tell you that you can't scale, in most cases, can't scale that quickly and still deliver quality, great customer service. How have y'all been able to do it?
Hire the right leaders.
Just the right people. Yeah.
So in every department, I feel like we've hired the right leader to grow a team. The owners of Angel Oak have invested a lot of time, energy, and money into allowing us to hire the right people and to grow. It takes money and investment to grow a great company, and they took a huge risk in the opportunity for us to grow. But the reason it's so passionate, such a passionate thing for me to talk about our growth is we went from being an Atlanta-based company to all across the Southeast United States, from Texas all the way to the Carolinas.
Did you?
So these are communities that I get to get in a car, on a plane, and go visit. I get to meet people that we're influencing every day and communities we're influencing. So that's why growth matters, is because you're able to go into communities that may not have had a lender that could offer the products that we have, that we now do. So you can go to the smallest towns in South Georgia or a large city like Orlando and see Angel Oak all over the place. And that really delights me because I know we're making a difference and helping people with the largest transaction of their life. We cannot forget every time we sit in front of someone who's applied for a home loan, this is their mansion. This is their opportunity to do something for their family.
Yeah.
So with
Probably their future as well, right? Pretty
It
much.
is.
Yeah, that's great.
With our licensed mortgage advisors, they're experts. They're going to take the time to make sure that they are putting our clients in a program and a product that is good for them and their family, to give them options and to quickly help them get to the closing table, which is what everybody wants to do.
Yes, yeah, quickly and with no glitches.
That's
Let's
right.
get to the closing table. So what's in the future for you and for Angel Oak Homes?
I think the future for us holds continued growth. Our economy is in a great spot. The real estate market in the Southeast United States is in a great position to see growth. When you hire great people like we have and you have momentum, I think it's opportunity to step on the hammer and grow, and that's what we're doing. Every day we go and meet with people, and we're always looking for the right professionals in the right areas to grow so our territory can expand. The sky's the limit for us, and the good news is we're building it one person at a time.
Well, let me ask you about that before I let you go here, which is, this is a time of low unemployment. And so how do you find good people these days?
I think your reputation speaks for itself. I think people are attracted to people that are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people look around, they see the healthy growth of our company. We're uniquely positioned as a company that's doubled in the last 2 years. So I think our reputation has drawn and attracted people to us. And then once again, we talked about that organic growth. If you do the right thing every day, people notice.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting when people call you and want to have a conversation with you, and we're seeing that happen.
So let me get this straight. You're hiring good people, and a lot of them are calling you.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a company that maybe our listeners might want to engage with, huh?
Yeah, angeloakhomeloans.com. We take a lot of pride in what we do, and we want to make sure we help everyone have the opportunity to become a proud homeowner.
So that's the website, right?
That's the website.
angeloakhomeloans.com.
Yes, sir.
And this is Matt Cregger, Senior Vice President, Regional Manager with Angel Oak Homes Loans. I'm getting tongue-tied. But I appreciate you being with us, Matt. Thank you for that. And thank you especially for bringing your daughter Lily to and she won't talk, but she's got a beautiful smile.
Lily, do you have anything to say? Okay.
No, she's shaking her head. Like she says, I have all this wisdom, but I'll wait till it's my own show to share it. That's what she's saying. Yeah.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah. Thank you, Mac. This is Al Simon with Sandler Training, and the show is Simon Says. Let's talk business on Business Radio X. And we've talked to David Aferiat with Avid Vines. We've talked to Mac Cregger with Angel Oak Home Loans. And our third guest today, Glade Johnson with Advantage Protective Services, President of Advantage Protective Services. Welcome, Glade.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you're here. So we have three very different businesses here, and three very, very seasoned sales or business professionals with us. I always say sales professionals. It just comes out of my head. So Glade, tell us about Advantage Protective. I've heard it said like boots on the ground type stuff. I mean, that's what you do, right? You protect properties.
Correct.
With guards, with people.
Yes.
And how long you been doing that? And tell us the story behind your company.
Well, I started my career as an FBI agent, spent about 10 years with the FBI, and then...
Did you investigate Business RadioX before you
I did,
accepted
and
this gig?
it was pretty serious.
There's some problems there?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll have an investigation further into that one. Yeah.
And after that, I got involved in security somehow, and worked for 2 large national companies, and was brought to Atlanta by one of them.
From where?
From Utah.
Okay.
And then I decided after a time that the best thing that I wanted to do more than anything was have my own company. And so 15 years ago, I bought a small company, changed the name, and we became Advantage Protective Services.
And you loved it, right?
Well, owning your own business has highs and lows.
Yes,
so
it does.
You basically loved it, but there certainly are challenges.
Right, right. So, but your particular company, with your particular leadership, you have certain advantages over your competition. Tell us about that.
Well, I think one of the advantages that we have over most of our competition is that we're smaller. Having worked for larger companies, I see the drawbacks of having a large company and needing to hire a great number of people to replace officers who have left, and someone is just sending them out wherever, and they're not necessarily matching skills with the post that they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
And I got frustrated with sometimes not being able to make decisions that I wanted to make without going through several layers of management above me. And so one of the advantages of Advantage is that we have a very short chain of command, and clients know that they can call me, and I stay in close contact with those clients. And if there's an issue, I have a staff, but a lot of times people call me directly, and that's fine. And we're flexible. We can make changes. We can do things to meet particular client needs, such as the way they want their invoices, etc. And that, to me, makes a difference, and I think to our clients makes a difference as well.
Absolutely does. Yeah, when you have an active business owner, it changes the customer service picture completely.
It does, and we've had clients. We've been in business 15 years. We've had clients for as long as the last 14 years. So we keep them, and they know they can call me anytime, day or night, and they do.
Yeah, they do. Mostly at night, right?
Sometimes at night, yes.
So what kinds of organizations are your clients? Tell us, give us some examples.
Well, it's pretty varied. We don't do any armed work. We're only unarmed security officers.
Okay.
We provide security at warehouses and distribution centers, at gated communities, at hotels.
Oh, it is wide-ranging.
It's pretty wide-ranging. And the skills for those various locations are very different in terms of what we need to provide in the security officer.
I'll bet. So in this age of low unemployment, how do you find good people?
Very tough. It is very hard to find good people right now. We hire people that we think are good people, and they sometimes don't show up for work.
Yeah.
Sometimes they last a week or two and just decide they don't want to work. It's hard, but we keep screening. The other day we invited 40 people to respond to our ad, and about 7 or 8 did, and we hired 1. So there's a lot of screening that goes on in order to find good people.
Well, that's a ratio that makes a lot of sense in your industry, though, if you think about it. I think, anyway.
Yes.
Being picky about who you hire.
You have to be in our business because regardless of what I'm doing, the security officers out on post, not necessarily, we'll have a supervisor drop by and see them periodically, but they're out there on their own, and we have to trust them, and they have to do what they're supposed to do.
Yes. Okay. So you've got a staff that helps you with that?
I do. A very dedicated staff. I think they all have accepted my approach to management, which includes taking care of our officers. Sometimes officers will take advantage of that, but most officers just appreciate the fact that we take care of them. For instance, one of the things that we offer, in fact, it happened just yesterday. One of my officers called and said she was in a financial bind. Payday is next week. She needed some money this week. We gave her an advance.
Did you?
Yes. And so it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, they really appreciate that.
Well, I'm certain they do, and it probably helps with retention of good people.
Yes, and that's very important.
I imagine in your business, yeah. Okay. So you've been doing this for, what would you say, 15 years now?
Well, with the including the two companies I worked for before, it's more like 30 years.
Okay. Well, we won't talk about age on this show. But you certainly know your stuff. With background at the FBI, working for two large national organizations in the security business, and now having your own company for that long. And I am sure that your customers appreciate that experience and the business practices that you bring to them. All right, so you must keep your customers a long time?
We try to keep them as long as we can, and we have a number of them who have been with us for many years.
Like how long?
Well, I would say besides the 14-year, there's two that are right behind them at about 13 years.
Wow.
We have several that are 5 years to 10 years.
Isn't that unusual in your industry? Doesn't that usually change more often?
It is unusual. And one of the things I was told when I first got into this business was that I was a regional manager in the Mountain States for a company based in Oakland. And the president of the company said, when you go out and make sales calls, you can remember two things for sure. One is that before you went in, 10 other salespeople had been in before you, and after you leave, 10 more will be in behind you. So it's competitive, and if you don't do a good job of minding your P's and Q's and crossing the T's and dotting the I's, someone will come in and the client will be unhappy and you lose the account. Although that's not the only reason that a company can lose an account, but that's one that we don't want to have happen.
Right. Yeah, there are lots of reasons why you might lose an account, but certainly by you messing up is not a good one. And the word gets out these days a lot easier.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So you're doing excellent work, Glade, at Advantage Protective Services. How can our listeners get a hold of you and your company? What's the best way?
Well, our company telephone number is 770-544-0150.
Okay, 770-544-0150.
Yes.
Okay.
But they're welcome to call me on my cell phone. I get lots of cell phone calls. And
really?
That's the best way to reach me because I may or may not be in the office.
You know what you're asking here. You're right. It's going to blow up on you. So
that'd be great.
Okay, and that number is?
770-912-0840.
770-912-0840.
That's correct.
All right, you asked for it, Glade.
Okay, well, I'll take it.
Okay. All right, good. So, Glade Johnson, president of Advantage Protective Services, and if you have a facility or a neighborhood or anything that needs protection, I think you're going to want to talk to Glade. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
today.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So we have really had three varied companies here run by three very, very capable people, and we appreciate you all being here, David, Mac, and Glade. And so we're going to conclude this episode of Simon Says Let's Talk Business, as we usually do, with the sales tip of the month, I guess we can call it that. A listener asked me, what's one piece of advice you would give a salesman wanting to increase his or her close rate? That's an interesting question. Increasing close rate is one of the best ways, of course, to increase sales, and of course, from a sales professional standpoint, increase commissions and income. And so there are several components that go into that when we work with our clients. But I've decided to talk about what I think is the number one way to increase close rates, and that is to stop quoting or proposing to everybody who moves. Seriously, stop doing that. It's interesting. David, you talked about being selective about the growers that you're working with, right? And Mac, you talked about being selective about the quality of people. And of course, Glade, you talked about the ratio of applicants down to hiring one person. Being picky is huge, and I think that sales professionals tend to want to put out a whole bunch of proposals. In fact, a lot of times when I'm talking to a prospective client, and I ask them how they grade their salespeople, how they rate their salespeople, they say, well, they better have a bunch of proposals out on the street. And I can't think of a worse way to measure the effectiveness of anybody in sales.
One of the things that I've learned over the years is that when I sit down with a prospect and they say, I don't care how much you pay the officers, I just want to know what my bill rate is, then I know that's not a client for us.
There you go.
We don't go any further.
Well, now, to be fair, buying on price or selling on price is a valid business model, right? But it's interesting. Those kinds of organizations don't typically get help from us, right? I mean,
right.
People that get help from us are folks that want to sell because they have quality stuff and they want to sell it at a premium, and that makes perfect sense. So most people, when they decide if someone is qualified to get their quote or proposal or presentation, whatever it looks like when they show their solution, most people have a very subjective way of deciding if the prospect qualifies to get that proposal. Well, in our process, we help our clients to have a very objective way of doing that, very specific criteria to make sure that the prospect is qualified to get a proposal. And you can substitute quote or demonstration or presentation depending on what world you're in. But here it is. First of all, the prospect must have enough what we call pain. In other words, they must have personal and compelling and emotional reasons to buy from you in the short term. The opposite of that is a phrase people already know, which is kicking tires, right? If they're just kicking tires, they don't get a proposal. At least not now. Maybe later, but not now. The second criteria is they have to have it budgeted, or it has to be fundable. If they're hoping that the price is low enough that they can fit it into their business model without budgeting for it, that's probably not a good candidate for you either, right? They have to be able to pay for what it is that you're offering, whether it's a product or a service. Thirdly, they have to have a decision-making process that you understand and are willing to go through. I mean, seriously, most of the time, sales professionals who are winging it don't find out until way too late that this thing's got to go to committee, or it's got to go by the CFO, or they're going to get 4 more bids or whatever, and so they're forecasting it for this month, and there's no way, right? It's just not going to happen. So, it has to have a particular decision-making process that is objective. And fourth and final criteria is there must be an agreement from the prospective client that they will give you a decision within a reasonable period of time. And then that period of time must be specified up front. So if it's going to be a couple of days, it's going to be a week, whatever it's going to be, anything longer than that, then I would suggest don't propose yet. But anyway, that's what we work on at our company with our clients. We work on how to make it so that the sales forecast is truly accurate. Because Glade, if you're going to allocate resources or even have to hire officers because you got a client coming on, don't you want to know that the client's really going to come on and when they're going to come on?
Absolutely.
You got to know, right? And so the sales process must be good enough to be able to do that well. And that's today's sales tip from Al Simon. What Simon says, let's talk business on Business Radio X. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you being on the show.
Al.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. And so, like I always say, good selling.